Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. How are you all feeling today? Wow. Yes. That's only part one though. That is part one. There needs to be a very big part two to this adventure. Spurs are quite literally on their way to Bilbao, as the chant has been going. Isn't it lovely to be absolutely delighted with what your football club just did? It's not a feeling we've had a lot this season. Um, but this was a good night in Buda, as the passport stamping lady confirmed to me as I went through Oslo airport on the way on Wednesday. Oh, thank goodness for that. Tottenham Hotspur turned up just when we really wanted them to, and it was glorious. The end of the match, though, was chaos for me. Absolute chaos and pandemonium. Pandemonium. Can't even say it. That last 20 minutes, I was sorting out my player ratings, sorting out some other written stuff, sorting out my press conference blog for Postecoglou because I had to go down and sort that out straight away after, while also having been given the green light, because Spurs were 5-1 up at that point, to book 4 different connecting flights to, not technically Bilbao, going to Vitoria, a little town which is supposed to be very nice, about 45-50 minutes from Bilbao. As you know, Bilbao is just absolute, just crazy prices for everything. So this was kind of like a workaround, which hopefully will work. But yeah, oh my goodness. I think I've done it for so many years now, kind of writing things right at the end of matches when crazy things are going on. This was definitely up there with stress levels. Well, in a moment I should have really been enjoying, I actually found myself when the penalty was given against Pedro Porro, kind of going, no, don't do that. I don't want something else to write about. Don't you dare. And then thankfully VAR intervened. So go to your monitor. Alice is having a meltdown. It was such a nightmare. Trying to book 4 different separate connecting flights, knowing that if one of those disappears, the whole thing is stuffed and you've already paid for a flight. Yeah, we're all doing it. It was a row of us reporters trying to do it. Fans have been far more sensible. I spoke to one gentleman today, a Tottenham fan, on the way actually at Gatwick when I just came back. And he says that it was so obvious. I don't know. I don't think you can do this as companies, but I'm sure fans could do this in the future. Is just book something with a travel insurance thing on it. So if you did have to cancel for any reason, you get your money back. It doesn't really work that way with media and booking things, but yeah, it was just madness. It was utter chaos. Buda, that's immediately going to say it wrong. Buda was amazing. You know, we've spoken before about how one beauty of the Europa League is you get to go to places, kind of non-mainstream football cities and stuff like that, that maybe you wouldn't otherwise go to as a holiday. This was definitely one of those places. It was incredible. It's beautiful. One of the most beautiful places I've kind of been to around that area. I've never been to Norway. And I think just the moment I kind of rocked up, it's all so kind of close together. The airport is about a 10-minute walk from the stadium. Stadium is about a 15-minute walk from the town. It's just all together. And as soon as I kind of walked into town, it's like, this is like the kind of place. It's for anyone that wasn't there. I know there was only 404 fans, I think, that went at the capacity allocation. You just walk out. It's like something out of a Norwegian kind of, just how you'd imagine it, like a Norwegian, almost like a fishing village type thing. But it's not. It's a town with whatever it is, almost 50,000 people in it. And it reminded me, and I cannot remember the name of it. And please, people, tell me in the comments. Stevie Van Sant did a After Sopranos Netflix show. It's on the tip of my tongue. You're probably telling me, but I'm going to have to. Van Sant Netflix show was called Lilyhammer. Of course, it was Lilyhammer. It reminded me of that kind of place. It's just beautiful. I genuinely would probably go back there for like a weekend and take Mrs. Gold, because it was cool. And I didn't actually get to do one really cool thing they had where you could go out on a boat and see one of the biggest whirlpools that exists, I think, in Northern Europe or something like that. They call it a maelstrom there. And apparently there's a massive whirlpool in the middle of the water. I think it's Norwegian Sea out that way. That I want to go and do that. So maybe I will head back. But the people were incredible, beautiful place. Every Spurs fan, I just bumped into so many around because it's a small town. It was weird because you'd be walking along the streets and Johan Langer would walk by. He'd be strolling along the water. Bodo Glimt players would be walking around sometimes. I saw a couple of them just hanging around outside the Spurs hotel, which was interesting at one point. Some fans were telling me that they'd seen Daniel Levy walking around as well. I think they'd gone into accidentally the Spurs hotel, saw him, and got ushered out again by security. It might have happened. Not saying that he told them to get them out, but I think they were spotted by the security people. It was just really weird, and loads of Spurs fans. Most of them had tickets. I bumped into a couple that didn't and thought they'd just at least try on the day. I think you would have struggled. I'd like to know if anyone did manage to get any kind of tickets on the day, because, as you know, it's a capacity of over 8,000, and that city was a sea of yellow ahead of the game. Everyone, even when I had breakfast this morning in the hotel, all the waiters and waitresses were wearing the Buda shirts. It was it was lovely. It was just really nice to see, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad Spurs won and they were beaten, but they really gave such a great account of themselves in this competition. After all the madness, after all the chaos at the end, it was just lovely to kind of just look across and just see the players having their moment with the supporters. It was great down there. The kind of all happening to the side of where I was, and it was just all glorious. It was a really cool night on a pitch. All the talk about being about the pitch and about the press and all this sort of stuff. The pitch before the game, and it was raining. The first day we got there on the Wednesday was a reasonably nice day. The Thursday was a bit of a grotty day, and it was constantly kind of raining on that pitch. And then you had these huge water cannons. They were shooting loads of water over it. And it was quite interesting. There was a couple of Norwegian journalists found it fascinating that I had tweeted it just before the game. I was like, why have they done this? Why are they spraying? And I'm not talking sometimes you see in a football pitch, you see sprinklers go on just to kind of make it a bit wetter for the passing, a bit slicker and all that. This was not that. This was a water cannon that came out of the ground and was, it's the kind of thing that you would get rid of crowds with in some very authoritative places. Or over the top places. It was mad. And these Norwegian reporters were like, why did you say that? What did you think about it? And I was like, well, sure. I felt that actually the pitch wasn't as fast as I expected it to be. And it was probably because of the amount of water on it, which probably played into Spurs' hands more than it did Buda. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. But yeah, it was just crazy. Any of the fans that there will tell you, they were pumping that water across while playing. At one point, they had some rock going. We had pyrotechnics, we had fireworks. They did a really good job. It was obviously a small venue, small place, but it felt like a huge thing. It almost felt like a massive FA Cup tie taking place at a smaller side with the big side going there. But Spurs didn't act in the way that teams often do in those circumstances. They were thoroughly professional, didn't take anything for granted, and it showed on the pitch. For me, I think the key moment in the match when it really... I don't think I was ever particularly worried about Spurs in the game, which was a surprising thing, bearing in mind this season. But there was a certain moment in the match when everything shifted into a different gear for me. It came around the hour mark, and I was watching across at Ange Postecoglou, and he'd seen enough. He turned to Matthew Wells, his assistant, and you could see him saying, get him, and he was pointing to Matisse Tell. I'm presuming he wasn't saying him, he was probably saying, he calls him Matty, so that would have been confusing. Matty, get Matty. And the reason why was because, look, Richarlison had worked hard. He was constantly tracking back. But every time, or a lot of the time Spurs attacked, kind of seemed to end with Richarlison. It just didn't go any further than that. And on this occasion, Destiny Udogie, who was excellent again, had made the whole back four were brilliant. Udogie made this just pitch-long sprint to overlap Richarlison. And rather than use him, Richarlison cut inside. I don't know if it was a cross or attempt at a shot. but it was rubbish. And it hit a defender's leg and actually careered back into, or ricochet is probably a better word, back into the area that Udogie had just left. It was actually quite a dangerous moment, but I can't remember. Someone got across, maybe Van der Ven, and the ball went out of play. And yeah, Postecoglou was like, no, we're not having that anymore. Tell trotted back from his warm-up. Richardson's number went up. That was 61 minutes. Tell came on. About 90 seconds later, Matisse Tell swings in a really vicious kind of deep corner. Romero gets to the back, heads it across. And there's Dominic Solanke to slide home. I think it's 15th goal of the season. And that was the goal that broke, I think, pretty much a lot of the Buda crowd's hearts. They were magnificently noisy, or they could still hear those Spurs fans. Spurs fans are brilliant when they're on their travels, especially in Europe. They're just so noisy, even the most noisiest venues. And yeah, this, you could just hear those Spurs fans. That's all you could hear. I think the home fans they knew the game was up by that point. 4-1, that was probably going to do it. Like I said, all the talk about the pitch, all the talk about the bad pressing, as one of the Buda players had said. Actually, that pitch, it reminds me, there were wrinkles around the sides. And I'm not talking about off the pitch. There were some bits, but just before the sidelines, where it just wrinkled up. And all I'm thinking is like when Mickey Van der Ven's going, I said, no, tread on it, Mickey, don't tread on it. It's like, of all the people that could get any kind of injuries, I just don't want you going anywhere near that strange little wrinkle in the pitch. But look, this was the thing. I had various people kind of asking on the day, like, how cold is it? What's the pitch like? All this sort of stuff. And all of the stuff that was kind of made a big deal about going to Buda was not really there on the day. So temperature-wise, it was fine. It was about 6 or 7 degrees, but it didn't really feel that cold. There was a bit of a breeze at times. It was a bit chilly, but we're not talking about the snow they had before the Lazio game and stuff like that. It wasn't anything like that. And the pitch itself, with no disrespect to Tamworth, it was not like Tamworth's pitch. Tamworth's pitch, was very much, I've seen them many times, those kind of 3G, sometimes 4G, non-league pitches that, used by the community. This was not that. This was a high-level pitch, which I guess is why it's allowed to be used in top-level UEFA competition. And Spurs, from the first whistle, just were able to deal with it. They had no real issues with it whatsoever. The bounce sometimes would skid off a little bit, but it wasn't hugely different, and they all were controlling the ball well. This was the thing, we talk about things in hindsight, and Postecoglou saying ahead of the game that, they were just going to train the day before on the pitch, because all these artificial pitches are different and all different dimensions. Had Spurs somehow found themselves out of the competition at that stage, everyone would have grabbed and seized upon that and said, look, you didn't prepare properly. And now it's just a thing that means nothing. No one remembers it. But he was right. They just needed that one night to kind of adjust and adapt. And Vicario said that as well. He said kind of as soon as they were on it, they were quite quickly felt that they, and this was on the training the day before, they kind of just got the bounce and they understood it. So, yeah, it worked. They were excellent. They were excellent. And obviously the one that completely sealed it was Pedro Porro cross, and he admitted it was a cross as well. Sailed over everyone, bounces off that left-hand post. It's one of those classic keeper cliche moments where you just see the keeper going, and you just see it bouncing. He can do nothing about it. It was obviously a bit of a fluky, fortunate goal, but Spurs more than deserved it. I thought they were tactically perfect on the day. They played just to the letter of what Postecoglou had asked them to do on the day, and Buda had no answer. And magnanimously, their manager, Kjetil Knudsen, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, pretty absolutely destroying it. He said afterwards, we should congratulate Tottenham for a good plan. They strangled our free game, took away the tempo. It became a match where we never truly got into it. They had the energy and the power. They wanted to go to the final, and we have to recognise we were one size too small. We don't have any excuses other than meeting a better team. There was something about Tottenham. They made a plan according to their opponents. They surprised us to some extent. The best team made it, which, yeah, was pretty cool. Yeah, there's no disagreeing with that. They were head and shoulders above them. Trying to remember any little moments where I was like, ugh, and I think Destiny Doggy having to make a couple of last-ditch kind of clearances, which were really crucial. I think it was a header over from the number 9. He's fired into the side netting. That was about it. I think the only save Vicario had to make was pushing over an overhit free kick. And that was it. They played excellently, Spurs. There's nothing to be grumbled about that match whatsoever. I would be stunned if there was a single Spurs fan that was unhappy with that match and the way it was done, because, yeah, terrific. And I mean, Postecoglou and Vicario had said the day before in the press conferences about the criticism about Spurs pressing being bad from some of the, I think it was one Buddha player in the first leg. They just both said pretty much the same thing. It's like, the match will provide an answer for you, and better than any words will. And they were spot on. It did. They were powerful. They were aggressive Spurs. They just never gave Berta a moment to just breathe. They barely got over the halfway line with any kind of reasonable possession that got them anywhere. They just didn't know where to go. And that's the irony. The press was terrific. It was really good. It pinned them back in so many areas. In the early stages, I think we said this about Frankfurt as well, but Berta looked nervous. They were giving the ball away. They were struggling to get the ball out from the back. We've heard this so many times and seen it so many times. Never criticise the other team for anything ahead of a game. Just don't. If you tell Spurs their press is rubbish, you can guarantee the pressing is going to be one notch higher in the next game. That's not something where it's like a double bluff. So we want to trick them into pressing. It's like, no, it stuffed you. Don't do that. Obviously, this was not the free-flowing, all-or-nothing Postecoglou football that we kind of has been associated with him. Richarlison and Brennan Johnson were kind of like wing-backs at times. They were so deep. They were defending so deep. Deki Kulusevski was up in... it was like a 4-2-3-1, the old style that we used to see under Poch as well. Obviously, it kind of started there really to a degree. But yeah, Deki was pushed. He was almost like a support striker for much of the game, whereas the other two were coming back really deep. And I guess it will continue to frustrate the fans and myself to a degree as well that we see Spurs do that in these performances. You know, they go and do that, be really tactically disciplined, give up possession. I think they had something like 38% possession, 30-something. And yet still dominate a match without the possession. And they've done that elsewhere. You know, they've done that in Frankfurt. They did it at Man City. There's been loads of kind of examples. I say loads. There's been examples of that where they've shown a different side to their game. And you just kind of think if there was more of that variety over this season, what this season would have been like. It might have been slightly different in the league terms as well. Of course, there's every chance that, you know, a higher league position might not have been met by such a run in Europe. You know, football fate is a funny thing. It doesn't necessarily mean one begets the other in a way. But yeah, it's just, they clearly can play that one under Postecoglou. That was the plan. It wasn't like the players went out there and go, no, we're doing it our way. It was like, he'd said, this is what I want you to do. Do it this way. And there was kicking long from Vicario at times. There was getting rid of the ball under pressure rather than putting pressure upon yourself. And I just think it kind of proves that there's certain games for that and certain games where there's another way of playing. And you do kind of wonder, maybe more so for Postecoglou's future, what would have happened had there just been this better blend of that earlier in the season. I know the injury kind of stuffed them, the injury crisis stuffed them in certain ways to be able to play. But it's just another example of when they get it right really well. And look, hey, at least they're finding their way at the right time. exactly the right time, and hopefully we've got one game more. It'll be a 60-game season. The final will be, it'll be Postecoglou's 100th game in charge, which is mad. It just feels like that's flown by. It was good. And do you know the weird thing I kind of felt at the final whistle was that I think maybe because this season has been so disappointing in domestically, they've almost conditioned themselves, the Spurs players, to not celebrating wildly. So when that final whistle went, I was watching them, and a lot of the players on the pitch were like, and you just got to imagine this, how, well done, chaps. Good luck. Well done. Rah-rah. I don't know what rah-rah means. And it was almost left to the players on the side of the pitch who'd played their part over the course of this season, the Europa campaign as well, but weren't playing on the night, who kind of just ran on and got everyone G'd up and was like, you've just got through to a European final. I was watching them. You had like Wilson Odobert ran on. He jumped on Yves Bissouma's shoulders. Jed Spence came along and rugby tackled Odobert and took him down to the ground. Archie Gray was running around just being generally mischievous. He was like a classic. We always say he's got such a wise head and mature head on young shoulders, but he looked like the kind of little naughty kid, kind of. And there's a Mikey Moore was on there as well, just loving it. And even in the dressing room, there was moments when, if you watch it, they've got loads of clips doing the rounds. There's a moment where they're like having a group photo. And if you look, there's people that are doing like with the drinks and the water as they always do. But you watch Archie Gray. Archie Gray is going up behind Vicario and Van der Ven. He's just pouring water on their heads. Just like that. Literally absolutely soaking. Vicario's in his pants, which is probably not appreciated. To have cold water probably. And he's just doing this, Archie Gray. And yeah, it was just really funny to see him kind of act like a kid. Well, no, he's not a kid, is he? But a teenager. That's the way to say it, isn't it? Without sounding really patronising. And I think that just started it. That started the ball rolling, all of these players coming onto the pitch and getting them all kind of realising what they'd done. And then we had that kind of lovely moment where they went over to those fans as well. Matisse Tell just jumped into them. You could see the security guards around him was like, no, what are you doing? And he was kind of hugging and grabbed and all that, and eventually kind of worked his way out of there. Yves Bissouma ran up and like kind of jumped onto the advertising hoarding, and I saw one of the security guards holding him aloft up there so he didn't fall. And it's just a great image. Spurs took it. I used it on my talking points today as well, and I think they tweeted that kind of phrase that we're getting at the moment. Hang it in the Louvre, and it's a great shot. It's a really great shot. But what I didn't capture straight afterwards was as Bissouma's up there, kind of arms outstretched, like "I love you and you love me," which is coming a long way from Bissouma as well in recent weeks. I can't remember who it was. Someone pulls Bissouma's shorts down, and he is suddenly having to jump or fall back down to the ground to protect his modesty. It was quite funny. I love all those little funny things that kind of happen when everyone... I try to do that. I know there's a lot of journalists that are still frantically typing away. I try to get to just carve out a little bit of time after a final whistle, just look at how the little things that go on the pitch and how they're kind of interacting and what they're doing. And Bissouma does love a good celebration. We've seen him over the years with that, especially at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, going with the music and orchestrating the South Stand, when he's really enjoying himself. And yeah, he was enjoying himself certainly last night. He in his post-match interview, they were talking about the flight home, and he was saying stuff like, "We'll sing," and even the president will sing, I think. Can't imagine Daniel Levy is going to be leading a rendition of "Can't Smile Without You" or a conga line around the aircraft on that way home. But hey, certainly he's one step closer to that silverware he craves. Just one game away now. And actually, another person down there as well in it all, Postecoglou. You could see the emotion on his face. I'm not saying it was kind of, he was crying away on the pitch or anything, but you could just see his guard was down. And the reason for that is because his wife, Georgia, was in among the fans. There was quite a few of the players' families were there. And yeah, his wife, Georgia, was was in there, and I think keeping constant contact with their two young sons as well. And when Postecoglou saw her, he was waving, he was blowing kisses to her. It was just really nice. And the other aspect to this as well, as we spoke about this way back, this was my first ever question actually to Postecoglou when he joined. You might remember, certainly him talking about this, not the question, that he used to watch these big, not only English games, but big European games live in the middle of the night in South Melbourne, with his dad Jim. That was their thing. He would wake him up, young Ange as a child, in the middle of the night, and they would watch these huge games. And now, of course, Ange Postecoglou, all these years on, is going to lead a team out in a European final. It's lovely, the kind of the circle of life, as it were. And when he was asked about it, it was George from the Press Association asked him, George Sessions, after, about exactly that. And what would your dad make of all of this? There were just some moments in his answer where I think he was a little, maybe just had a lump in his throat. I think there was a couple of moments here he just kind of spoke quite more slowly than I'm used to seeing him speak, and I think there was a little bit of emotion there, which is as it should be. To achieve something so few Tottenham managers have managed. The last time they were in a European final was 6 years ago. The last time before that was 41 years ago they last won a European trophy. So yeah, he was asked that, and his answer was, there'll be a time when I reflect on all of this stuff, but I've got friends who I grew up with who are probably booking tickets to Bilbao right now. For all intents and purposes, I'll be on the touchline, but almost with the imposter syndrome that I should be in the stands with them, because that's where it all comes from. He said, it's my 4th year in European football, and I've got a chance to lead a team into a European final. That's something I'll look back on, but I'd rather look back fondly with a positive memory on the day. But yeah, not just my dad, but my family, my wife who is here today cheering on with the away end. Credit to her and two boys on a school night who I've promised a trip to Bilbao. There's so many people who take the knocks and feel it more than I do. I'm sure they're proud of me tonight, but more importantly, I'm just pleased I can give it back to them for all their sacrifices. And yeah, I mean, it's true for him. I'd still say, and I've said this before, I don't think he's quite as thick-skinned as he makes out. I think we've seen that. But certainly in those positions, he will be thicker skinned than, the people around him and his family who have to kind of hear some of the unpleasant things that are said about him. And I've always said this whenever I've kind of spoken to like players' families, when I've seen them out and about, because everyone's so familiar faces. We're all kind of on these away trips. And I'm sure lots of the fans know the various players' families as well. But one of the things I always say to them is like, how do you do it? How do you stand in among, on these away days, especially, among fans who will be saying, let's be honest, stuff you really don't want to hear about your children. And it's not just, it's not just parents. It can be wives, girlfriends, whatever. Because I just think that would be so difficult. How do you not react when you hear someone absolutely saying the most awful things about your son because they're annoyed that they're not playing well in a football match or they've just missed a chance or something? I don't know how they do that. That would be difficult for me. But I guess it's part of it, I suppose. Maybe you harden yourself to it. But yeah, I just thought that was really nice from Postecoglou to kind of acknowledge that as well. He's quite good at that with players as well. You might have seen that famous speech he did when, was it for the Australian national team? I'm trying to remember who it was for now. When he was talking about, do this for all those people that have sacrificed along the way for you in your journey. Whether that's your mum, your dad, aunts, uncles, anyone that kind of gave up their time along the journey and had to go without so you could do this. And yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. It kind of come full circle for him being the one that's doing that. And yeah, you might have seen it. He made this really kind of heartfelt speech in the dressing room to the players, which was, we know he's an orator. That's what he does. He speaks very well. And it's a really interesting one. It's kind of just his pride in them, really, for getting through everything they've got through, sticking together through all the difficulties of this season especially, and this was a reward for them. Because this has been a very clear target from the start of the season for all of those players, this Europa League final. And it is something they've visualised, they've been going for, and here they are, 90 minutes, potentially 120 minutes, and made penalties from that, or they're from the trophy anyway. And what he also did, he made sure to mention those people who were not on this trip, those who played their part along the way. You know, the injured players like Madison, Sonny, Bergvall as well, and those no longer even in the squad, like Fraser Forster. He name-checked him, who'd obviously played earlier in the competition as well. And then he spoke about every day now being a chance to prepare for this final. Not a single day should be taken granted in the next, 11, 12 days or so that they've got. And he spoke about the fans as well, and spoke about how the players had given them a night they would never forget. And it's true. It's true. You know, we're probably not talking on the scale of something like Ajax, because that was just the most ridiculous, incredible finish to a game. But a lot of fans on this trip, it's almost be like a badge of honour that you were among the 404 that went to Buda and got to see this incredible place and saw your team get through to a European final. Everyone I spoke to after and this morning as well, when we were kind of at the airport, were just saying this is something that I'll always kind of remember forever. And that was what he was saying in his speech as well. And the other takeaway I took from that speech was watching the players' eyes and watching them. He's still got that dressing room. Of course he has. The connection's still there. It's as strong as ever. You can see it in the way they're listening intently to him. No one's looking away. No one's ignoring him. They're all listening intently. And he's still got the dressing room. And most of all, it's in the performances. I've said this before, you do not go out there and play games like that. Stick to the tactical plan that's there to the letter. Give everything. Just because, it's on you to win it. It's about you wanting to get to a final, you play like a bunch of individuals. If you want to stick to an exact tactical plan, it's because you believe in what the manager's told you to do. And they do. They do. Even those who, don't like Postecoglou and don't want him anymore have to acknowledge that game, he got spot on and the players did exactly what he wanted to the letter. They did, and we've seen at Spurs many managers have lost the dressing room as soon as things got tough. There have been players that have kind of maybe looked out for themselves, and the manager's been hung out to dry, and it has not happened. Postecoglou's still got that dressing room, and that's why they stand on the verge of history. Of doing something very, very special when we don't really expect it, really. And, he's got every right to be delighted with them. There were so many positives from that performance out there on the pitch. Back four, like I said, was superb. Thought Romero was brilliant. Thought Romero led the line. He brought that big game experience. Yeah, this is a man that's won a World Cup final. This is a man that's won 2 Copa America finals. This is a Romero, we probably want to see more of. A guy that was utterly in control, utterly dominant. Everyone around him. I've said this before, but again, I think it happened yesterday, that even in the huddle, he'll step back and let a louder person like Vicario speak in the huddle ahead of the game, ahead of kickoff. But on the pitch, everyone looks to see what Romero's doing. Van der Ven has quite a good interview. Actually, I might have the quotes here that he did after the game, where he said about Romero. He said, Cuti's an unbelievable player. You can see that mentality-wise, with the ball, without the ball. He knows how it is to play these types of games. You can see it in how he is. He shows so much to the rest of us. He helps the whole team. My partnership with Cuti, we feel each other. He knows what to do. I know what to do. We back each other. And that's what it is. When he's like that, Romero, you can see why he's considered by Messi and co to be one of the best in the world. But yeah, it's just, you want more of that. And hey, anyone looking to get him away this summer, again, that just adds to the price tag if you're going to try and get him. I thought he was excellent. I thought Mickey Van der Ven was superb. I thought he mopped up everything that kind of went behind the lines at all, used that pace. I thought Doggy and Porro were both excellent in the fullback slots, defended really well. And like I said, Doggy made 2 really good last-ditch clearances. One with, I think he back heel, or he got kind of the back of his foot to one. The other one, I think, was a really good header, just ahead of his man. And they both almost like they've been, someone had pressed fast forward, and they were just just up and down the flanks. They didn't make that noise, but that was just, it sounded like I was having a fit. I thought it was superb. I thought it was so good, both of those as well. And I thought The refocused and revitalised Basuma continues his comeback journey. 3 in a row, 2 where he's been fantastic, and 1 at West Ham where he's been quite solid. And Bentancur, they ran the show in the midfield in terms of the pressing and the tackling and just putting the Buda midfield completely off what they were trying to do. They weren't able to. They string some nice passing sequences together at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They couldn't do it at home. They couldn't do it on their own pitch that they're so familiar with. Excuse me. They really struggled to get any rhythm, and I think that was the 2 of them screening that defence. And like I said, the only save I can remember Vicario making was pushing over and over, hit a free kick, and that's it. I think at the other end, I'm not saying Spurs had chances galore. They were kind of, like I say, they were looking to hit Buda on the break. I'm trying to remember something. There was Porro had a free kick that was tipped over. That was quite a good free kick, actually. It just needed a little bit kind of more swaz, as it were, to just get it more towards the corner. And yeah, I'm trying to remember anything else Vicario had to do. I don't think he did any more. Yeah, so they did their job superbly. Kulusevski, Johnson, and Richarlison, like I said, would have wanted more from their attacking endeavours, but work rate, again, it's not going to go. It's one of those things that's going to go unnoticed, but they put in the yards. They both, all of them, Kulusevski as well, they were tracking back constantly. I'd love to see the running stats from that game. They must have been huge for Spurs and what distance they covered on that pitch. Yeah, and Solanke, I just really like him. I think he's great. I think he's so good. I've never met a fan in person that's been at a game that's told me that they don't like Solanke. I think I only ever see it on social media. I think maybe when you're at a game, maybe you're seeing a little bit more than shown on the cameras, and you just see he is going from one side of the pitch to the other side of the pitch pressing. He is coming back to get the ball. He's just doing so much for the team. And, you know, he's there in the right moment to score the key goal that kind of killed Buda hopes. And like I said, I think that is 15 for the season for him, which isn't a bad return when you consider he missed about 2.5 months as well this season with an injury. So, and who knows, there could be more goals to come from him as well. Hopefully there are in that final. Nice hat-trick in the final would be lovely if you could, Dominic, please. So I asked the first question, the slightly generic, well, I tried to change it slightly. I said, did they execute your plan to the letter, was what I asked Postecoglou. And he said, yeah, the players were outstanding. He said they were well prepared tonight. The staff did a great job of making sure the boys were really clear about what we needed to do, and they executed it perfectly. It's been well chronicled in the last few days. It's a difficult place to come to. They've got a really imposing home record, not just with wins, but with goals, which they have scored a lot of goals. I thought the lads just handled it really well, as they have throughout this European campaign, particularly the knockout stages, and credit to them. I thought they did an outstanding job. And that's the other thing. For all the talk of Postecoglou's inexperience in Europe, he's got to a final relatively quickly. And to be fair, as well, he wasn't shy in pointing that out afterwards. You know, I guess if you're constantly being kind of hammered for being this inexperienced, this kind of level manager, if you just led your team to European final, why not just go, stuff you lot? and he did it in a not particularly obvious way, but it was there. He said he was asked whether, was he proud of what he's done in the Europa League? And he said, I guess, yeah, it's a great opportunity. It's my 4th year in European football. Plenty of people have been in European football for longer than I have, and they haven't got to a final. So you understand it's something you need to appreciate, and I'll certainly do that. I haven't really thought a lot about it, because obviously the focus is on tonight. More importantly, I'm just really pleased for the players and the staff, and particularly our supporters. There were a few hundred here tonight who I'm sure will remember this night, and thousands back home. We've given them some real hope and something to dream about, that we can do something special this year. And that's what it is. We can now all look forward. This season is not over. Yay! It's not over, people. We are not having just a run of Premier League games that no one cares a jot about. We've got a European final. Praise the Lord. It's just fantastic. And hopefully it has a fantastic ending. But I think I quite like the fact that after this game, Postecoglou wasn't all like happy, nicey. He did not want negative talk after a semi-final victory that's got you into the final of a European competition. I think it frustrates him to his very core that even in one of Spurs' biggest triumphs in recent years, there's almost like a caveat or a reminder of, oh yeah, but it hasn't gone well, has it? And I get it. It does really irritate him and grate on him. And he said about Spurs United being through to the final, he said, it's going to upset a lot of people, isn't it? Debate's now raging. The latest one is that neither of us will be able to get a trophy if we win. They're just going to take a team photo because we're not worthy. I mean, who cares if we're struggling in the league? Why is that important, as in the context of this? If it's so easy to get to a final, then why doesn't everyone who finishes in the top 3 do it? I do wonder whether it was a little like, hello, Arsenal, in there. I don't know. I don't know whether that was the case. It might just be a general comment. But just coming the day after Arsenal obviously hadn't been able to get through to their own European final. He said, it's a separate thing. It's got nothing to do with league form. We understand our league form hasn't been great. We understand the struggles we've had. A lot of them are because of the situation we've been in. But how that diminishes the achievement of getting to a final... but how does that diminish the achievement of getting to a final? Like I said, this club and others have finished in first, second or third in the Premier League and haven't made finals. Why should that be diminished? I couldn't care less who's struggling and who's not. I think both us and Manchester United have earned the right to be there. I think we've probably beaten teams who will be in the Champions League next year on our road to getting there. So I'm looking forward to it. It should be a great game. And it was put to him about this not really being this attacking, relentless form of football that he loves, but instead it has the grit and resilience that he also asks from his teams. He said, look, I love winning. That's what I've done my whole career. People dismiss it, that's fine, but I love winning. And I love the way the boys clearly understood what we needed to do tonight. The key thing for us was to not allow them to get any sort of rhythm in their game. They like to play at a quick tempo because they use the surface. They take advantage of the opposition being uncertain on it. But I thought our press was just outstanding. We never allowed them to really get into our half with any sort of clean possession. It's a credit to the boys that they understood what the task was tonight and still had the quality to score the goals we did. His frustration really came to the surface when he was asked a question about, I think the question was about Manchester United believing a Europa League trophy won't save their season, but would it do so for Spurs? And he was just like, why do I care what Man United think? Why is this relevant to me? Ask the Manchester United manager why he said that. Me, I've said all along, this is important. And so the reporter kind of rephrased the questions as, okay, well, what would it mean for Tottenham's season? And he said, well, to be fair, you know better than me. You've followed this club for longer than I have. What do you think a trophy would do for this club? To which the reporter said, well, I think it would be massive. And he nodded and said, exactly, that's exactly right. The question answers itself. It doesn't need me to, but what's happening now is people are fearing that it actually might happen. And let's see, how can we tear it down somehow? How can we diminish it somehow by saying it's been a poor season, we don't deserve this or we don't deserve that, or somehow comparing us to Manchester United? Maybe if we had Man United's success, then maybe I'd have a different view. But I came into this role, you know better than me. I could have been sitting here at exactly the same time of the season in 5th position, and I can guarantee you that the commentary around me would be, well, that's great, Ange, but this club needs to win something. That's exactly what everyone would be saying. So, of course, it's massive. Of course it is. Because you have to frame it against what this club has been through over the last 15 or 20 years and what the supporters have been through. Man United have got their own journey to go on. Maybe if they go 17 years without winning something, they'll change their perspective on things as well. It's difficult to disagree with any of that, especially the 5th place talk. You know it. If Spurs were in 5th place, although technically, you know, they'd be getting Champions League football from that this season, people would still be going, you didn't win a trophy this year, though. Still going to win a trophy. That drought continues. And you know they would. Of course they would. It would be huge for Spurs to win a trophy, especially this one, the first European trophy in 41 years. And I said it before, but Postecoglou would instantly, with the blow of a final whistle, would go from Spurs' worst statistically manager in the Premier League era to one of their most successful, because he's won a trophy if that happens. That is the fine line of football. No one remembers that. All it says in the history books is, well, hopefully, would be Tottenham won a European trophy. And that's all it is. It's just mad, isn't it? And everyone's going to want to play their part in Bilbao. You know, Sonny he said ahead of the game is hoping could be involved in some minutes at Palace. We'll see that on Saturday. We'll get more news of that tomorrow as well. And he'll need minutes now. He'll want to get sharp with his after the foot injury. Obviously, Madison Dragshin definitely not going to be there. Madison, I saw, put out a little tweet today. Oh, actually, it's just come up on my screen. He said, gutted, just absolutely gutted. We've had our sights on that European final in Bilbao from day one of this campaign. So to accept not being able to take part out on that pitch with the boys is really tough to take. Injuries are just part of the game that can be so cruel at times. But I truly believe that it can be a special night for my football club. Bring on the 21st all together. So yeah, Madders is not coming back anytime soon. I think you're probably looking around the 12-week mark, which will bring him back just as pre-season's coming towards an end. Obviously, he may recover faster and be involved in a little bit more of pre-season. But to be honest, I know it sounds weird, but Spurs were kind of happy about the prognosis or the diagnosis because I think they expected worse. He's not going to have surgery, I don't think, and I think they were expecting a far worse outcome. Initially, it was like there was a bit of hope. Then, as I think they realised and probably assessed it, they were like, oh no, and it was like a real fear of kind of how bad it could be. And this is kind of like the best case scenario that then came out of that, if that makes sense. So yeah, no matters. I'm fascinated to see what happens with Lucas Berval because obviously Postecoglou has ruled him out for the season. He's already done that. But I just kind of have this just feeling in the back of my head like, can you have a feeling back in it? I guess you can. I certainly I should not be using myself in any way, shape or form to compare here, but I just know that when you're young, when you're a teenager, you just naturally, your body heals quicker. It just does. And I just wonder, I would be stunned if Lucas Berval is not, at least in the back of his mind, thinking, can I get myself, could I recover this ankle in time to get there? Even with people maybe telling him he can't, I just wonder if he's going to, I'm sure he will try everything possible to be available. Obviously, it's only 11, 12 days. It's so short turnaround. Whether he makes it or not is another thing. But I might ask Postecoglou about it tomorrow at the press conference and just say, look, I know you ruled him out. Is there a chance? Because he's so young and he may heal faster than older players would. And it'd be fascinating to see whether he just completely rules him out for one of two reasons, because he is just completely to be ruled out, or whether he does it just to kind of not put any pressure on him. It's not really putting pressure on him, I guess, if he just says, look, it's unlikely, but you never know, maybe. Or it's unlikely, maybe it's unlikely, but I'm sure he'll do everything possible to have a go. Maybe that's what he'd say, but we'll see. I'll ask the question tomorrow if someone else doesn't. But look, I understand anyone's desperate desire to be there. This is what these footballers dream of: is playing in big finals. In Bilbao, this 50-something thousand seater stadium. It's going to be incredible. I just hope it. No anticlimaxes like Madrid, please. 6 years ago, that was so pants. And I know Spurs have beaten Man U 3 times already this season. We all know that. They know that. But it feels like this is a slightly different United side, especially in Europe. Feels like he's starting to make his mark, Ruben Amorim, on them. But look, Spurs can take, they can take heart from their own performances across the continent this season. It's been this one shining light, hasn't it, really, through this season? And look, it's only getting brighter. That light is shining. Postecoglou said about, every time he thinks there's a light at the end of the tunnel, it's a train coming to hit him. Maybe that light at the end of the tunnel was Europa League. Maybe it's actually something else. I'd love it. I mean, United have got the experience, of course, in winning and winning lots and lots of trophies, and they'll have experience kind of going into a big final like this. But Spurs have the experience in a different way of the disappointment of 6 years ago in Madrid, and that was a bad night for the club. What was a historic night for the club ended up being, it's like almost like a knockout punch, and maybe they're only just getting back off the canvas now and getting back to European final. It just devastated the club. So many people really didn't recover from that. And who knows, I thought it was very fitting that exactly 6 years to the day that semi-final last night was to the night in Ajax, again wearing green, night in Amsterdam. It's maybe there's something there, maybe. But look, this is a different Tottenham team, albeit one with, I'd say, similar togetherness to that Tottenham team back then, amid the adversity in Europe especially. But the key now is for this group of players to create and write a different final chapter to this tale. That's what it needs. If they do that, look, they're all going to become legends in the most unlikely of seasons. And even Mr. Postecoglou will be able to say that this could not be diminished. You cannot take it away from them. If they do it, they'll be written in the history books, and we will remember these players for that. But they've got to do it. They've got to turn up on the day, and they've got to absolutely give everything in their locker. And I'm so excited. I am so excited. I'm sure it'll be more nerves as it gets nearer, but I am so excited about it. Well, what's mad is just this quick turnaround. It's like I've had to kind of apply for accreditation. Hopefully that comes through. That would be an absolute disaster if that doesn't come through. I know all the fans were having to kind of apply for tickets ahead of the game. Spurs have had to suddenly swing into action and do loads of stuff. Like we've got a media day for the final on Monday. We've got this Monday coming because it's like apparently it can't be the week of the final itself, so it's got to be the week before. So Monday we'll have a full open training session to watch, not just the 15 minutes that we normally get, the full session we'll see. We'll have a press conference with Postecoglou, which I'm not mistaken will be fifth within 6 days. And then we're going to have like we had this before with the Champions League, it was great. Like this massive mix zone where we just interviewed so many players, and that's what we're going to have again. So I don't know when all of that will be able to kind of come out. I'd imagine a press conference has to come out straight away, but the player interviews, maybe you'll see them kind of come out over the course of the following, 9 days ahead of the final after that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's great. And you'll sense the excitement and the anticipation within the club as well. But yeah, like I say, there's just so much to fit in. Press conference tomorrow morning at the training ground. Match on Sunday, of course, against Palace, which surely is going to have the biggest number of changes we've seen in the game. It must be for a while. You'd think you'd change the whole back four. I wonder if he even gives Kinski a go in goal, maybe, just to give Vicario a little rest. I don't know. You've got Sarr will come in. Odegaard will come in. Maybe Mikey Moore gets a start, maybe. That would be great. I think they're going to have to dot in a couple of the ones that started the weekend. Maybe Richarlison starts up front. Or Tell. Does Tell start up front? Can you have Odegaard, Tell and Moore? That might be probably not the most physical front three in the world ever. Maybe Richarlison because he came off after an hour. Maybe he comes on. That would be a big old run of starts. Would that be 4 in a row? Starting 5 in a row? That's got to be up there with his kind of records this season. I think someone said he started 5 in a row earlier in the season, or midway through the season, maybe. So we've got a match on Sunday, which is going to be really interesting because, I don't know how it's all going to work. There was originally supposed to be a protest. I presume that's still happening. Timing of that, look, I think whatever you feel, regardless of getting through to a final, it probably shouldn't impact that, but I think maybe naturally it might. I don't know. Because of the timing and everything. I would imagine within the stadium there'll be a little bit of not quite a party atmosphere, but maybe after the Lord's Mayor show kind of thing. Palace are difficult to hit. They're in the cup final. I don't know whether they rest players or not, or it's not going to be a particularly joined up Spurs performance. I suppose against West Ham it wasn't awful. But yeah, just this weird game when everyone's looking forward to the next one. Same with Villa away. But then also thinking about it, there's this other side to it of it's probably too many days, isn't it? Almost 2 weeks between the semi-final second leg and the final. You don't really want the players to kind of lose their sharpness and not be tuned up and ready for it. So they're going to have to play in one of those games. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe he plays half in one Sunday and half in the other. Maybe that's a way around that. I don't know. Might have to ask him. Maybe that's another question to ask him tomorrow. But yeah, we've got to fit it all in. But this is the kind of stuff we want to fit in. Like I said, 60 matches it'll be this season, not including the pre-season friendlies and that post-season trip to Melbourne and stuff like that of last season. Postecoglou's 100th game in charge will be the final. It's funny though, isn't it? When everything's mad and busy like this, it doesn't matter because Spurs are in a final. Hey, it's so much better. It just makes everything much better. Even work is like a slog. You're just kind of excited to do it. I was writing my articles today on the playback, just going, yay, kind of thing. It was so cool. It's lovely, the differing emotions of football, eh? Right, time to head off. I've spoken to you enough. Go and enjoy whatever the rest of your evening or day holds. We shall reconvene after Sunday, maybe Monday night, and I can kind of talk a little bit about how the open media day for the final went, and we'll talk about the Palace game as well. I really hope there's a video to come when it's just me kind of just going, yes, for the whole start of the video. I really hope so. Let's see what happens. But yes, time to go. Tottenham Hotspur are on their way to Bilbao. And it's wonderful. And hopefully now they take the next step and make us all very, very proud. On that note, as always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.